Hello everyone. Today I'm going to discuss about generative AI and its studio counterpart, generative AI Studio from Google Cloud. So, if you are an artist, a developer, or you are just interested to learn about generative AI, in today's session, I'm going to give you an overview of generative AI and how we can develop and taste generative AI in generative AI Studio. Now, when we think about generative AI, it is also an AI, and there is a confusion whether AI and machine learning and deep learning everything is same. So the answer is we consider AI as a discipline, and the machine learning is a subfield of this discipline, and deep learning is a subfield of machine learning. And now the new addition to the family is generative AI. So generative AI, this is a subset of deep learning. Now deep learning can be of two types. One is discriminative and another is generative. In the discriminative approach, we try to classify or predict, and we typically train the data set, train the model with level data set. And in generative model, we try to generate some new data from the model, and here the model tries to understand the distribution of data. How it works is basically like we provide an input to the model. So here you can see an example that we are providing an image of dog to a discriminative model, which is the regular deep learning model that you used to know before, and it classify it as a dog. So it provides you the level which you use to train this model. On the other hand, in generative technique of deep learning, we are providing it an image of a dog, and the model can generate another image of a dog, which is similar to this input. How this work is something like we provide the model with data and levels in the machine learning model, and it tries to learn the relationship between the data and level, and it outputs a level which was happening in the discriminative model. In generative AI model, we are providing unstructured data as an input, like video, like text, and we are not giving any particular levels. The model tries to learn about the pattern. Let's say uh, we all have different facial features. Now, if the model is familiar with the pattern of different faces, it can generate different faces when you give an input of the face. I think this funny application you have used in your mobile, and you may have generated your version of different celebrities, or maybe the image of your old age and your young age. So generative models are providing us new content. Till 2012, we had a wave of neural networks, and we are also using those application still, because those are applications like you were asking the model whether this is a cat, whether today is sunny, whether today is rainy. And how it was working is like we are training the model with the data and its level, and then it was able to tell us that whether this is the cat or the dog. Nowadays, in generative language model, the approach has changed. We ask the model to learn about huge piles of knowledge, like huge piles of information, and then we tell the models, so you have now the knowledge about cats and millions of other concepts, and what is a cat. Now it generates information for you. It says you a cat is an animal which has four legs and so on. Now, this is another way to understand and distinguish between generative AI model and non-generative AI models. So, if the output of the model is natural language, image, or audio, then we are calling it a generative AI model. Other than that, this is not a generative AI model. Now, in today's demo, I'm going to show you how to use some generative language models. So, in those models, it basically tries to learn about patterns in language through training data. Let's say it has the data set where we have the data like maybe name the entity tags, and like we have the relationship between text. We have so much data, and from that the model generates a pattern. It generates the pattern of the different types of data, like it learns about the distribution of different types of data, and then if you write something it can tell you what comes next, just like this. So when we are saying that I'm making a sandwich with peanut butter, and it's providing you the next things. And now what we also have is, if you write the meaning of life is, it will give you this kind of output. And all of these are done by generative AI models. But how does it happen? When we provide some input, it is passed to the transformer, which is a model, again a deep learning model. It has two types of component. One is encoding component, which encode this input data into some format, and then from this we can have the decoding component, like we can decode the output of this encoding component, and from that decoded pattern we can generate some output. So we pass this thing to the generative pre-trained transformer model, because you will not be able to train the model with large amount of data every time and then get your output. So there is a pre-trained data which have learned about those huge piles of information, and then from that we get the output. So if you ask it a question, it's gonna give you the answers, and which is through the generative model, not from the other machine learning model where you provide the level. Here we are providing text, but we are not saying which types of text it is or what does this text means. There is no tag, no level with this input. And these are kind of applications generative AI can do today. Of course, for text, we have many applications because it came first, and the other options are also available. Like we can generate code from generative AI, and not only generate code, we can do the documentation, and we can even review the code nowadays. For images we can use it for design, for customer or social media content. For speech we had voice synthesis, and we also have nowadays video editing, 3D model generation, scenes generation, and some other applications. Now, before I move to the demo, I want to mention this limitation of the generative AI model. So I'm talking about the generative AI language model here. So just like we sometimes hallucinates about different scenario, like if we have any hallucinations, if we think about unrealistic scenarios, the concept is similar. The generative AI models sometimes provide you nonsensical data or grammatical incorrect data. And why this can happen is the model may not be trained on enough data. Let's say you have a pre-trained language model, but you want to pre-train like you want to fine tune this language model with your data set to serve a particular applications. Let's say you are building it for some medical application, but you didn't provide it enough data. uh, so in that case, it may generate wrong information or output unrealistic data. And also maybe you can provide noisy or dirty data, and sometimes the model is not given enough context. So this is not about the training part, this is when you are writing the prompt. So if you are writing the prompt, the text, like the input we provide to the model, we are saying it a prompt. So if you write a wrong prompt or a prompt without any context, let's say if I say the generative AI model give me a speak a note for hallucination, and I don't mention which hallucination I'm talking here about, it can tell me about the psychological hallucination instead of the hallucination term in generative AI. And yes, and constraints are kind of similar thing. Now, time for the demo. I'm gonna show you first the Generative AI Studio, and then I will take you to the Google Colab notebook to see how it works. So, and like I have a project here which is called IO Extend Auto. I will be working on this project, but if you want to create a project, you can go to new project and you can create a project here, and then you can work on this directory. So I have enabled the Vertex AI. So once we are inside the project directory, from here you can actually search for the APIs or resources you are going to use. So you have to select the Vertex AI and then you have to enable it. Once you enable it, you will be able to see an interface like this where you see the language, vision, and speech option under the Generative AI Studio. So let me select the generative AI. Sorry, it was the previous prompt. And then you see something like this, like where you can write the text, also you can code the text, and you can, and then it will ask you for the billing account. Don't worry about this. It will not be charged until or unless you are like using it as a service. So I click on submit and my response is here. So it says courses, tutorials, books, and it shows me how I can learn generative AI. It shows me about some steps. But now let's say I don't want to just test it as an user. I want to program it or I want to make my own application. So if you click on view code here, so I'm showing again view code, it's gonna give you three options to generate the code for this application. So you can do it in Python in your local machine or using some other tool or interpreter. And if you are a Colab lovers like me, so you can use Python Colab. It shows you the step-by-step thing. So first you have to install this libraries, and then you will do this code. So you can see here I have some parameters, I have the text Python model, and then I have the whole code. And also you can use the curl method for the cloud applications. Now let me show you how it works in the Colab notebook. So I come to Colab and then I run it. So I have to allow the credentials. So just like sometimes when you use Google Colab with Google Drive and it asks for authentication, it's connecting this Colab notebook with my Google Cloud account. Say sorry. So I allow it, and now that it is connected, so it will be generating some output for me. Now before it get connected, okay, so the output is here. So you can see that courses, tutorials, whatever output you have seen in that Vertex AI interface in the Generative AI Studio, this is here. Now before you modify this code, you have to understand few concepts. So the first thing is the token. So token is nothing but it's a unit of text that can be used to represent word or phrases. And here we have some parameters that you also need to understand. So the first one is the maximum output tokens. Here we can change the name number as we want to do it. Sometimes we want concise, sometimes we want more, so we can change this number of tokens in the output. And then we have another variable, temperature, but this is not the weather temperature. This means the randomness you want to make through your model. Like sometimes you want your model to more creative, sometimes you want it to be precise, so here you can change this value. And we have top p and top k. So the top p is the probability that a word will be generated from the top p most likely word. So it's from the most likely words from the model. And there is top k value, which is the number of most likely words. So if you change it, maybe you can get less or more most likely words that will be considered when generating new word. So these are some variables which you can change, and then you can get different types of response. And you can see we are using a text bison pre-trained model, which is basically based on the palm 2 model, but it is like it is fine tuned with some data set that is able to handle text. So that is how this one is working. Now, we have seen like how we can use generative AI studio to test the model, and from our own input we will have a code here, and that we can bring to bring to Google Colab. And yes, this is very easy to do it, but you have to understand the steps so that you can try it by yourself and you can find in your own model. Like if I ask the code to generate like how can I understand or showcasing an example of using media pipe API, it's gonna output me about that. So you can make individual application, or you can use it for your own purpose, like your self-developed generative AI models for different applications very conveniently with this generative AI studio.